Hey, welcome back, Pete, to the Top Lender Show. I'm Charlie Madison, your host, and back with Pete Muggleston with OMA. What does OMA stand for?
Online mortgage advisor.
I knew that. I wanted to let everyone else know that too.
Oh, I was going to say. There you go now, Charlie.
And one of the things that we were talking about before we hit record, and I really love that you guys do, you actually have a whole part of your business, a whole section on your website dedicated to mental well-being, handling the stress of not just mortgages but moving. How did that come about?
Great question. I think we spoke a bit about this before, but there's loads of investment in the property industry and mortgage industry in the UK trying to fix the process to make it easier. It's not too long ago, lenders were accepting faxes still. Like, the mortgage industry doesn't move as quick as everything else. And it's not moved a million miles in the last decade, really. But anyway, all the money seems to be going into improving the efficiency and the speed of the process, which is great. But no one really doing anything to help reduce the stress that people are trying to reduce by improving the process. It's voted in loads of different studies that I can't name, but one of the most stressful things you can ever do. I remember when we bought our house, even doing what we do, I hated it. The whole process was like, is the offer going to get accepted? And then when it is, what's happening with the lender, with the mortgage, and then this deposit thing, and then all of this stuff going on. It's a nightmare. So two passions of mine. One is mortgages, which is really sad to admit, but it's true. And then the other being a personal journey with anxiety, actually. And one of the reasons that we met through Jamie, and Jamie helped me, was one of the biggest changes for me was meeting him and becoming exposed to a lot of resources that I never knew existed, and a lot of like theory about how. So I struggled really badly with anxiety when I was at university. So I've learned a lot about that. I just went on this crusade to try and sort it out and not feel crap anymore, and managed to do that. So I've put the two together, really. It was just like, there's something that we can do here that would help people cope with the stresses that they're experiencing. We want to help with the finance, right, and reduce that stress by like making that more transparent and getting you the right advice with the right person who's going to give you the best service, so there aren't all those bumps in the road anyway, but there is the inevitable just timeline of buying a house that is horrible that we were trying to support people with. So I was like, let's put a bit of a portal together to support people who might need a bit of help with that. And whether anybody would care or not, I wasn't sure at the time, but we put some time into it anyway. And it snowballed a little bit, where I'd gathered my thoughts and all of the conversations that Jamie and I had. We decided to record some and have a bit of an interview series around like coping with different things. And so that's all on the portal that you can go and see. And then I collated loads of other resources of things that I found helpful that hopefully loads of other people have found helpful too. Because there's so much crap online about mental health and well-being and whatever. And when I was struggling with anxiety, was my problem, the GP would talk about CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and reframing, and then there's loads of other stuff like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, that you talk to yourself slightly differently. And I just went on this massive mission to study everything. So I studied all of it, and I did it all in my spare time, really. Well, I did it while I was at university, and I should have been studying, and I didn't. I should have done a psychology degree, probably. So, yeah, and I just studied loads of different stuff, and loads of stuff didn't help me or work for me. And the things that Jamie showed me did. And it was just, so I learned a lot about the brain. I learned a lot about my mind and how mind works in general. And I wanted to share that, I guess. So that's it.
What are the top tips that you found help during this process?
The process of
of
moving or the
moving, getting a mortgage, this whole process. I think commonly it's like the top three stressors are like divorce and death and moving. It's like one, two,
yeah,
three. And
yeah.
so, yeah, what are the things that worked for you and that you've seen like work for y'all's customers?
So reducing like the stress of the process, get your ducks in a row first, definitely. Like you want to know where you are in terms of how much you can borrow. You want to know what you can actually borrow. You want to know what the deals you qualify for are, which you can't do online really. Like you can't just go on any website right now. And this is something we are working on at the minute, spoiler alert, but we want to, comparison tables are just a table of rates. They're not like which deals can you get, what's the exact amount you can borrow, and then you can go out to the market and try and find properties that fit within what you know you're going to be approved for. That just doesn't exist right now. So getting your ducks in a row first, really, you need to understand that you'd speak to a broker, a good one, and make sure that, right, I am going to be eligible and these are the deals roughly that I can expect to get and how much I'm going to be paying. And what you then can do is go out and look at properties that you know are within reach. If you just start looking at properties and find one you love and then try and get the finance afterwards, that's just, you've just created a massive stress for yourself. That might not be possible, and then you're scrambling to try and sort it out. So get your ducks in a row first would definitely be the right advice to give there. And then solicitors. So there is, and I'm not sure what it's like in the States, there's such a range of quality of the solicitors in the market. If you pick the wrong one, it can be an absolute nightmare because the right one, it's really smooth. They know what they need from you. They ask you for it. You give it them. They deal with all the process. No one's dropped it on the stairs and lost all your paperwork. Like it's all just managed properly. And then you don't notice there's a problem. And if there is, they fix it. You get the wrong solicitor, stuff just comes at you all the time. Like, what about this thing? And you've not done that. And there's this document. And I've sent you all this stuff and they've lost it. So it can be a real chaos if you pick the wrong solicitor. So that would definitely be something to help yourself with. And then survey of the property. Don't just rely on the basic level survey that the lender's going to do to make sure that it exists as a property. You really should be investing in a better survey so you can have the peace of mind that the property is sound when you actually move into it. Because I've seen it loads of times where there's damp that no one knew about, or there's dry rot that no one knew about, and it costs thousands to fix. If you spend a few extra quid getting the proper survey done up front, you can find that problem and you can knock the price down accordingly to cover the cost of fixing it, or make them fix it before you move into it. So that's another point of stress that people don't really think about when they're doing it. And what else? Moving. It's hard to avoid the stress of packing up boxes and like chucking out. Maybe like a few months before, just cleanse your house, get rid of all the crap that you don't want anyway, so there's less to move. And that can be quite a liberating experience, I've found, when you're getting rid of a load of stuff. That's what I did before I moved into this house, and I got rid of a load of stuff. So you don't have to just cram it all into that day when the removal vans turned up. You can do it ahead of time. Probably a good idea. And then there are services that would just go on holiday for a few days and pay. So if you've got the money, get the service where they just come and back it all up for you and move it into the new house, and you can just move into it without worrying about it. But not everyone can afford to do that. We certainly didn't. So that, and then from the mental health side of things, um, there's loads of resources on the site and the portal that we've put together that can help.
And then you've
That
got
I'd recommend.
you've got the stress buster audio. I think
Yeah, there's a
I
few
saw.
things on there. Yeah, it's great, and it relates to everything. You speak to Jamie, like the mind is the same, whatever the stressor is. It doesn't matter what it is. So whether it is divorce or bereavement or moving house or your football team losing on the weekend, whatever the thing is that you're stressed out about, the same process is going on and you're having the same reaction to it. And once you understand how the mind properly works, and how a lot of people, I think, certainly for me anyway, my brain was working against me and I was letting that happen. And when you fundamentally understand what's going on, it's a bit like the light turning on. And I talk about it in the videos, but I had this light bulb moment where I was like, oh, I've been doing that to myself. And that was quite a powerful thing that I wouldn't say I don't ever get a feeling of anxiety and stress anymore. I just don't suffer from it, if that makes sense. Whereas before, I would create something out of nothing and then I would spiral on it for ages and make it worse and worse and worse and worse. Now something big might happen and I'll feel something, and then I don't let it get carried away, and then it doesn't affect me, if that makes sense. But anyway, I won't go into too much on the call now about it, but there's a lot of things that you can do to go and improve your knowledge and understanding of the brain, and then a lot of these things don't feel as stressful. But I don't know whether moving house is never going to be stressful. I reckon Jamie was still stressed when he moved house. I'm sure you were,
Yeah.
Charlie.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one. Some stresses are almost impossible to ignore.
Make it as peaceful as possible. And I love that you said it's not that you never have anxiety, you don't suffer from it. I think that's the power in it. There's a difference I've experienced. We met through Jamie, and I too have experienced this. Like, I used to get stuck in my head, and I'd either have really high highs or really low lows and couldn't break out of it. And now I can still have those, but I'm not trapped anymore. And I've dove deep into this for my real estate practice to help my clients be able to, because there's so many unknowns, and the unknown can be scary, right? Like, it's not that there's not fear, but it's not suffering from the fear, being able to not be trapped in it. And so I just love that through this process, working with my own clients, my clients need to be able to be free to, when I'm not suffering with anxiety or fear, I'm free to make the next best choice. But when I was trapped, I was stuck.
You use all your bandwidth up on the worry.
Right.
You get 7 ± 2 bits of information to process at one time in your head, and you can use all of it on worrying about that thing, and then you've got nothing left for anything else. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. When you think of this mental well-being in times of stress or this type, what's the most important thing about it?
One of the things that I really like, and it's not like a headline in any of the like the material necessarily, but nothing you can think is true. Like, it's only ever, I just love that. It's only ever like your best guess. It's not actual fact. It's just if you're thinking about something that happened in the past or worrying about something, the future thing you're making up, unless you've got this time travel machine, it's all nonsense. And the past thing, what were we talking about 5 minutes ago? Or what was I wearing last time we spoke? Or what, we haven't got a clue about any of that stuff. And your memory can trick you too. And your brain puts all the pieces of the puzzle together to form this image of what's happening. But none of it's really true. There might be some facts in it and that make it feel real, but it's not. So I really like that one because it made me just not give too much bloody weight to the things I was thinking. And then the other realization is that you only ever feel the thoughts that you've had. If you're feeling off, then this just means that your thinking's been off. They're probably the two biggest ones I would say, is that your feeling is just a symptom of your thinking, which is you'll just feel whatever it is that you've been thinking. So, but you're in complete control of that. But everyone can have a completely different experience of the same thing happening based on what their thoughts are. If you've got control over what your thoughts are, then why let them dictate how you're feeling about what's going on? When there could be a massive, big, loud bang outside right now, and 3 people in the room, one might think it's a gunshot and be panicking and scared and want to hide. One might be thinking it was a car backfiring and then reminisce about their first car that they had that used to backfire all the time, and they'd be feeling like a nostalgic, happy feeling about it. Someone might think it's a building that's building work going on, and then so many different things to the same thing that's happened, that responses people will have. Yeah, that'd probably be it. It's the ability to be aware of your own thinking is just that. It's just some thoughts that are happening in your brain. And then when you've got that understanding, you've got the control over it. And whenever you feel yourself feeling bad, it's because you've been thinking a certain way, and just don't worry about it, because nothing you can think is true anyway. So what's the bloody point in giving it any value?
Yeah.
And it might be a stupid way of thinking, but it made my life way better. Like I would not have any of the stuff that I've got now, I don't think, if I'd not lived my life like that. And I'm way happier than I was. So
Yeah. How did you test that out in your life? Like when you had that idea, how did you prove it to be true?
Anytime, it's a good question. How do I prove it? It just happened. If I feel, because like I said before, if I felt anxious, I used to feed it, and I would be thinking about it more, and then you feel worse and worse and worse and worse. And none of that thinking, like you're actively working on it. Like, why are you painting this picture continually? What's the point in that? And even like that, so then that's where I disagree a bit with like CBT, which can have a lot of help for people. I'm not and seek medical advice. Don't listen to me, I'm an idiot. But CBT for me didn't do anything, and NLP it did a bit, like because you reframing those negative thoughts that are making you feel bad to better thoughts that might feel less bad. But the process of reframing, the process of thinking and putting energy into the thinking all the time is exhausting. And you've got to constantly police your thoughts and make them better. And it just seemed a bit temporary. And then when I realised, oh, hang on a minute, just whatever you're doing, whatever you're feeling, if it's off, just stop putting energy into it, good or bad energy, just move on and do something else and not give it any. And then over time, it's a bit like training a muscle. Your neural pathways in your brain, the more you use them, the stronger they are. So then when you have a trigger that sets you off on it sets me off on a bit of a spiral of negativity. I used to be amazing at it. I could go from feeling great to feeling shit instantly, and like dread, horrible, bad, like feeling straight away, because I've trained it so well. I was wicked at it. And then the more I practiced recognizing that I was feeling bad and just moving on and not giving that thought any weight anymore, the better like that kind of muscle withered and atrophied down into now. I'd struggle to make myself feel anxious by thinking about the same things I used to think about now, because that muscle's not there anymore. That brain neural pathway has just changed in my mind. And I forgot what your question was. It was to do with like how I proved it to be true. Over time, really, the continual practice of recognizing when I feel bad and then just stop putting anything into that thought and go and do something else. Get out of the house, go and do a walk, think about something else, go and just forget it. Training yourself is a discipline, and it's difficult. You put a lot of time and effort into that thing, even though it makes you feel horrible, like you've invested into it, and it feels so real. So I can't just abandon that because it feels really real, but it's not. It's just made up thoughts about the thing that you think is going on, and all the fears and worries and stresses that you've got about that thing, you've just bloody made them up. Forget about it. And that's really easy to say, right? That sounds like dismissive, and I know I've been there. And as I said, it's not something that I don't get anxious anymore, but I don't suffer from it because I just don't feed it. So I suppose it's just stop feeding the dread, stop feeding the thoughts, because even if you're trying to make them better, you're still feeding it. But not medical advice. Speak to a professional. I'm a mortgage guy, but that's what worked for me.
That's awesome. I love that. And one of my favorite quotes from Jamie is, he might have been quoting someone else. He said, if the only thing people learned was not be afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world.
Yeah, it's a good one. He's got a few, hasn't he?
He's got a couple.
I've got a list somewhere.
Yeah. It's always fun when he says, who's your favorite Spanish poet? If you don't have one, you need to get one. Thank you so much. This is awesome. How can people go to the Wellbeing part on your page and find out more about you guys?
Yeah, if you go to onlinemortgageadvisor.co.uk/wellbeing, it's there. I think like the shortened domain is oma.co.uk, and then you can just search for it on the site. You'll find it.
That's awesome. And if someone's they're looking for their broker specialist, you've got the guarantee. They can go to your webpage, oma.co.uk. I think there's a button that says get started. And that's the best way that and you got a phone number. There's all sorts of ways they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, we're expanding our options, I suppose. Inquire through Get Started, and we'll put you in touch with one of the experts that way. There's live chat, kind of 9 to 5 now on the site, where you can speak to somebody for free, or make a phone call if you want to. That's probably the easiest way.
Thanks again for being on the show, Pete. Really enjoy it, and hopefully we'll have you back again.
Yeah, nice one. Cheers, Charlie.
Bye.